Things humans were never meant to see. There are places on this planet where humans were never supposed to go. Depths the ocean never intended us to reach. Moments the universe never intended us to witness. Phenomena so far outside the boundaries of ordinary human experience that the people who encountered them came back changed, or didn't come back at all. Tonight, 6 of them. The history of human exploration is also the history of human trespass. Every time we went somewhere we weren't built to go, the deep ocean, the upper atmosphere, the inside of a collapsing star, we found things that our biology, our psychology, and our entire evolutionary history had left us completely unprepared for. The 6 things on tonight's list were not discovered in laboratories or predicted by equations. They were stumbled upon by people who had no idea what they were looking at, and who, in most cases, wished they hadn't looked. Thing number 1. The Hadal Zone. The deepest place on Earth is nearly 11 kilometers below the surface. The pressure down there is 1,000 times greater than at sea level. And when we finally sent a camera down, what it found should not have been there. The Challenger Deep, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean, is the deepest known point on the surface of the Earth. Approximately 10,935 meters below sea level. To reach it, you would have to stack Mount Everest on top of itself and still have room to spare. The pressure at that depth is approximately 1,086 atmospheres. 1,000 times the pressure at the surface, enough to crush an unprotected human body in an instant. Enough to compress the water itself into a slightly different form than the water we drink. It is cold. It is completely dark. And it was assumed, for most of the history of marine biology, to be essentially lifeless. Nothing, scientists believed, could survive in conditions that extreme. In 1960, Swiss oceanographer Jacques Picard and U.S. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh descended to the Challenger Deep in the bathyscaphe Trieste. The first, and for decades, one of the only manned descents to the full depth. What they saw through the porthole, in the beam of their floodlights, immediately overturned the assumption of lifelessness. A flat fish, lying on the sediment at the bottom of the world, apparently unbothered. Something was alive at the deepest point on Earth. Not microbial life, not chemical life, a fish. An animal with eyes and fins, and a body plan that evolution had apparently adapted to conditions that should have been incompatible with vertebrate life. Subsequent unmanned expeditions have confirmed and expanded what Picard and Walsh glimpsed. The Hadal Zone, the region below 6,000 meters, is now known to contain an ecosystem of extraordinary diversity and unexpected complexity. Amphipods, crustaceans, congregate at the bottom in numbers that suggest an active food web. Snailfish have been filmed at depths of over 8,000 meters, moving and feeding with apparent ease. The Challenger Deep contains microbial communities, sediment ecosystems, and chemical processes that bear almost no relationship to anything at the surface. It is, in every meaningful sense, a different world. A world that existed for billions of years before the first human looked at it through a porthole and realized that the rules they thought applied to life did not, in fact, apply at all. Thing number 2. The cosmic microwave background. In 1964, 2 radio astronomers were trying to eliminate interference from their antenna. The noise wouldn't go away, no matter what they tried. They had accidentally detected the oldest light in the universe, the echo of the Big Bang itself. Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson were working at Bell Telephone Laboratories in New Jersey in 1964. using a large horn antenna to detect radio signals bounced off early communication satellites. They kept encountering a persistent, low-level radio noise that appeared to come from every direction in the sky simultaneously. They checked their equipment. They recalibrated their instruments. They found pigeons nesting in the antenna and cleaned out the droppings, hoping the organic material was causing the interference. The noise remained. Isotropic. The same in every direction. Unexplained. Persistent. They were baffled. What Penzias and Wilson had stumbled upon was the cosmic microwave background radiation, the thermal afterglow of the Big Bang itself, the oldest electromagnetic radiation in the universe, produced approximately 380,000 years after the universe came into existence and still propagating through space 13.8 billion years later. The pigeon droppings were not the source of the noise. The source was the beginning of everything. The two men who spent weeks trying to eliminate it were listening, without knowing it, to the moment the universe became transparent, the moment 13.8 billion years ago, when matter and energy separated and light was able to travel freely for the first time. Penzias and Wilson received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1978 for a discovery they made while trying to get rid of what they thought was a calibration error. The cosmic microwave background has since been mapped in extraordinary detail by satellites including COBE, WMAP, and Planck, revealing temperature fluctuations in the early universe that seeded the formation of every galaxy, every star, and every planet that now exists. The pattern of those fluctuations is visible in the data as a kind of fossil map of the infant universe, a photograph taken in radio waves of something 13.8 billion years old. The noise that two engineers couldn't get rid of turned out to be the oldest sound the universe ever made. They were never meant to hear it, but they did. Thing number 3. The Taos hum. Since the early 1990s, a small percentage of people in and around Taos, New Mexico, have been hearing a low, persistent hum. It has driven people to madness. It has no confirmed source, and every attempt to find it has failed. It began appearing in resident reports in the early 1990s. A low-frequency sound described as resembling a diesel engine idling in the distance, that was audible indoors but not outdoors, that could not be recorded by any microphone, and that was heard by approximately 2% of the local population while remaining completely inaudible to everyone else. Sufferers described it as constant, penetrating, impossible to escape. Some described sleep disruption so severe it affected their ability to function. Others described nausea, headaches, and a creeping psychological dread that came not from the sound itself, but from the impossibility of identifying its source. In 1995, following years of resident complaints, the U.S. Congress mandated a formal scientific investigation. Teams from the University of New Mexico, Los Alamos National Laboratory, Sandia National Laboratories, and Phillips Air Force Laboratory were brought in. They conducted extensive acoustic surveys, geological studies, electromagnetic field measurements, and psychological assessments of the affected population. Their conclusion, published in a formal report, was profoundly unsatisfying. The Taos hum was real, was experienced by a consistent subset of the population, could not be explained by any identified source, and could not be reproduced or recorded by any available instrument. The Taos hum has never been explained. Proposed sources over the decades have included military submarine communication systems operating at very low frequencies, geological gas movements, industrial operations, and a hypothetical phenomenon called autoacoustic emissions, sounds generated by the ear itself. None of these explanations has been confirmed. A similar phenomenon, called the Windsor hum, the Bristol hum, and the Auckland hum in different locations, has been reported by small percentages of residents in cities worldwide. Always low frequency, always unrecordable, always heard by a specific subset of the population. Something is making a sound that most people cannot hear, that no microphone has ever captured, and that has been driving a small percentage of the human population quietly mad for decades. We have no idea what it is. Thing number 4, the light at the end of the universe. In 1998, astronomers measuring the expansion of the universe expected to find it slowing down. They found the opposite. The universe is not just expanding, it is accelerating, and nobody knows why. The prevailing model of cosmology in the 1990s predicted that the expansion of the universe, set in motion by the Big Bang, was decelerating. Gravity, operating over cosmic scales, should have been gradually slowing the outward rush of galaxies, potentially leading to a future in which the universe would eventually stop expanding and begin to contract. 2 independent teams of astronomers, one led by Saul Perlmutter at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, the other by Brian Schmidt and Adam Rees at Harvard, were measuring the distances to Type Ia supernova, a class of stellar explosion that functions as a standard candle in cosmology, allowing astronomers to calculate precise distances across the universe. What both teams found, independently and simultaneously, was the opposite of what the model predicted. The distant supernovae were fainter than they should have been, meaning they were further away than the decelerating model allowed. The universe was not slowing down. It was speeding up. The expansion of the universe is accelerating, driven by something that exerts a repulsive force on cosmic scales. Something that has been named dark energy because dark is the scientific community's honest admission that we have no idea what it is. Dark energy constitutes approximately 68% of the total energy content of the universe. We cannot see it, cannot detect it directly, cannot explain its origin or its nature, and cannot predict with certainty what it will eventually do. It is the dominant component of the universe, and we discovered it by accident. When 2 teams of astronomers were trying to confirm a prediction it comprehensively disproved. The implications of accelerating expansion are difficult to process at a human scale. If dark energy continues to drive the universe apart at an increasing rate, the observable universe will gradually shrink. Not because the universe is getting smaller, but because the light from increasingly distant galaxies will take longer and longer to reach us, until finally those galaxies are receding faster than light, and their light never arrives. The night sky will, in the far future, go dark one galaxy at a time, as the universe expands beyond the reach of its own light. The last thing humans, or whatever inherits human curiosity, will ever see is the slow disappearance of everything. We were never meant to know this. The math showed us anyway. Thing number 5. The face on the ocean floor. In 2004, an underwater ROV exploring the Pacific Ocean floor filmed something that stopped the research team cold. A perfect circle of indentations in the sediment, arranged with a geometric precision that no known natural process produces. It took 10 years to find the answer. The images came from an ROV survey of the Pacific Ocean floor off the coast of Japan in the early 2000s. A series of circular patterns in the sandy sediment of the deep ocean, each approximately 2 meters in diameter, with intricate geometric ridges radiating outward from a central depression with a symmetry and regularity that seemed to every researcher who saw the footage, definitively non-random. The patterns were too precise for current action, too symmetrical for geological process, too regular for any biological phenomenon that oceanographers could identify. They looked, to the researchers watching the footage, like crop circles on the ocean floor, made by something. The mystery persisted for a decade. Japanese researchers who had first filmed the patterns returned repeatedly, hoping to catch whatever was making them in the act. In 2013, they succeeded. The architect was a pufferfish, specifically a small male pufferfish of the species Torquegenner albomaculosus, a species not previously known to science, which had evolved the behavior of creating these elaborate geometric nests on the ocean floor as a mating display. The male pufferfish, using only its fins and body, excavates the central depression, creates the radiating ridges, and then decorates the structure with shells and coral fragments arranged in specific locations. The entire process takes approximately 7 to 9 days. The female inspects the nest, and if the geometry meets her standards, she mates with the builder. The most elaborate geometric construction on the ocean floor is built by a fish the length of a human hand to impress a mate in complete darkness at the bottom of the sea. The discovery of the pufferfish architect resolved the mystery of the geometric patterns, but replaced it with something more profound, an animal that had never been observed, never been named, never been classified, was creating structures of geometric complexity that, when first observed by human researchers, were indistinguishable from deliberate, purposeful construction. The ocean floor is enormous and almost entirely unsurveyed. What the pufferfish was doing in that patch of sediment, it had almost certainly been doing for thousands of years before anyone looked. We were never meant to see it. We saw it anyway, and it changed what we thought we knew about what art is and what intelligence is, and what it means to build something beautiful in the dark. Thing Morpher 6. The overview effect. Every astronaut who has ever seen the Earth from space has described the same experience. A cognitive shift so profound that it changed how they understood themselves, humanity, and the planet permanently. It has a name, and it was never in any training manual. The overview effect was named and described by writer Frank White in 1987, based on interviews with astronauts who had experienced it. But the phenomenon itself predates the naming by decades. Reported by the first astronauts and cosmonauts to see the Earth from space, and consistently reported by every human being who has experienced that view since. Edgar Mitchell, who walked on the moon during Apollo 14, described a sudden, overwhelming sense of the interconnectedness of all things, a cognitive shift that he said arrived without warning as he looked at the Earth from lunar distance, and could not be undone afterward. Ron Garan, a NASA astronaut who spent time on the International Space Station, described it as looking down at the planet and feeling a profound sadness, not at the planet's beauty, but at the inexplicable disparity between its beauty and the way the humans living on it were treating each other and it. The overview effect is not a metaphor. It is a documented, consistently reported cognitive phenomenon. A change in the way the brain processes the relationship between self, species, and planet that occurs specifically upon seeing the Earth from the outside as a whole object for the first time. The cognitive shift involves a sudden and permanent intuition of the Earth's fragility and isolation. The thin blue line of atmosphere, the darkness surrounding it on all sides, the complete absence of any visible boundary between nations or peoples. The borders that structure most human cognition of the world simply do not exist from that altitude. The planet is one object, Everything that has ever happened in human history happened on a surface that, from space, could be covered by a human thumb. No training program in any space agency has ever successfully replicated the overview effect on the ground. Simulations, photographs, IMAX films, virtual reality. None of them produce the cognitive shift that the actual view produces. It requires the actual experience of leaving, of looking back, of seeing the whole thing at once. Astronauts who return from long missions frequently describe a period of reintegration, a difficulty readjusting to a world of national borders and daily conflicts after experiencing the planet as a single, fragile, extraordinary object suspended in absolute darkness. The overview effect is what happens when a human being sees the thing they live on from the outside for the first time. It was never in the training manual because no one anticipated it, and no one who has experienced it has ever been the same. If this video made you feel something you can't quite name, share it with someone who thinks the world is fully understood. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And before you go, which of tonight's discoveries would you least want to have witnessed in person? Drop it in the comments. We read every single one. And if there's a phenomenon you think belongs on this list, tell us below. You might just see it next week. See you there. Some things were never meant to be seen. We saw them anyway.